way too many mistakes. I know the fire has burnt out. No, I gotta leave now. If love is easy, if there wasn't any sanity that I could hold on to when I touch you. Hold on to. Love is blind when the lights go out. Can't see the shadows throwing, can't see the curtains closing. I'm telling you, love is blind when the lights go out. In the shared sky, we're one star down. Pull me close in the sunset. When the light is turned down, pull me aside, I'm not ready yet for the heaviness. It's getting darker now. I know I may look a little dazed, blurred on the edge, acting like it faces me. I know the fire has burned out. No, I gotta leave now. If love is easy, if there wasn't any sanity that I could hold on to when I touch you. Hold on to. Love is blind when the lights go out. Can't see the shadows throwing, can't see the curtains closing. I'm telling you, love is blind when the lights go out. In the shared sky, we're one star down. Taking the air from the room, just drowning in words that you don't say. Gone is the person you knew. You never loved me anyway. Love is blind when the lights go out. Can't see the shadows throwing, can't see the curtains closing. I'm telling you, love is blind when the lights go out. Love is blind when the lights go out. Can't see the shadows throwing, can't see the curtains closing. I'm telling you, love is blind when the lights go out. In the shared sky, we're one star down.
Hey, where you been? I feel lost and alone without you. All the ways that I've been, never realized that I was out of my mind. I never meant to run away, never got to hear you say you were hurt and went away. But I knew you were always on my mind. You were an angel made of light. I was the one who couldn't say what you meant to me. Always on my mind. Never got to hear you say you were hurt and went away. But meant to me, always on my mind. Say what you meant to me, always on my mind.
I've tried to stay afloat while waves keep crashing over me. Been holding on to all I've got, it's getting kinda heavy. So what if I just let go? What if I surrender to the tide? I could just let myself drown on the ocean floor. Sometimes we need to dive so we can be alive. I should have been keep me from living. So what if I just let go? What if I surrender to the tide? I could just let myself drown on the ocean floor. Sometimes we need to die so we can be alive. Baby, I'm happy here. Baby, I'm happy here. 하늘내리로 네가 내 나왜 미게리리에 이게 네 나왜 내가 따라라 오래 모이가가 너와 왜 될까 오래 모이가가 Baby, I'm happy here. Baby, I'm happy here. Baby, I'm happy here. Baby, I'm happy here.
I start to miss you like birds miss the sky. Let's go chasing sunsets and waste all our time. We dance in the streets, drink soda and wine, 'cause we love to fall in love late at night.
Yeah, I start to miss you like birds miss the sky. Let's go chasing sunsets and waste all our time. We dance in the streets, drink soda and wine. We love to fall in love late at night.
In love late at night.
Good morning. Welcome to Front Conference 2023. I'm loving the energy in here. It's great to see everybody, some familiar faces. And I'd like to give a big shout out to the upstairs, Papiersaal. Hey, if you can hear me up there, stomp on the floor. Yeah, I love it. And a big shout out to those watching at home or in the office remotely. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce someone very special, brand new to the program, my co-host, Ire Aderinokum. Give a big round of applause.
Hi, everyone. Is this on? Okay, it is on. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. It's like my first time hosting, and also my first time hosting here, obviously. So thanks for having me. And I'd also like to introduce someone you probably already know, my co-host, Nick Niles. So round of applause for him, please.
Thank you.
So just so we know where everyone is, we have 3 floors to this building. So the ground floor is called the Roosterei, and that's where you have the food. So that's where we'll have lunch, where you have the main info area. So if you ever get lost, just go there and they'll help, redirect you. Then the floor we're on now is called the lower floor, floor 1. It's the folium, right? Yeah. And this is where the dev track is gonna be, and you also have some water and bathrooms. If you go straight through the back there and turn left, you'll see where the toilets are. And then the upper floor is the Papiersaal. I hope I said that right. And that's where the design track is going to be. And also there's toilets, water, and coffee there as well. So if you ever get lost, like I said, just make your way down and you'll find someone that can help reorient you.
Lunch is one of the highlights of the day, of course, and that will be served downstairs at the Roosterei. There's kind of ongoing refreshments. You can usually get a coffee or maybe a little snack throughout the day. Downstairs, there's also water on every level, and there's also a coffee bar upstairs as well. We have water, local water, in these kind of big jugs, so you help yourself to it. There's also sometimes apple juice, one of my personal favorites. And then we have these cool bottles, the Dopper bottles. If you've been here in the past, you probably have one already from previous years. If you didn't bring a bottle of your own and you don't already have a Dopper bottle, there might be some available downstairs at the desk, so you can ask for one so we can recycle.
So like I said before, if you ever get lost, just make your way down to the ground floor and go to the info desk. So basically where you checked in, and they can always tell you where to go, where everything is. So the hashtags for the events, Front Zurich, you can use them on Mastodon or that social media. I kind of refuse to say X. And you can also, thank you. You can also follow us on social media. Just search for Front Zurich on any of these platforms.
So there's also, if you haven't already received one, the very handy conference booklet. Sir, can I borrow your booklet for a minute? It looks like this. So it's got the schedule. It's got the layout of the space. So keep it with you. I'd like to give a big shout out to our presenting sponsor this year, which is Unic. And also our diamond sponsor, which is Ostschweizer Fachhochschule.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that slide for obvious reasons.
I didn't either, but you know what? It's
And we also have platinum sponsors, Elka, Cloudinary, HostPoint, and AXA.
Gold sponsors, OpsOne, Zyx, Leap, Drypole, Smartiv, and Konoma. And
then silver sponsors, Hostar, 47 North, and Neidhartshon.
Our contributing partners are Ola Spirit, Swiss Dev Jobs, Bexio, Fresh Jobs with a fresh new logo, love it. The entire city of Zurich, Switzerland, and and Buffer.
And we all have these badges, so please wear them all the time so you can be identified. And then Wi-Fi, we have complimentary Wi-Fi. Host is Front.Zurich, and password, I'm sure that means something in binary, but I don't know. That's the password. It's also on your badge, so if you don't remember that, it'll be there.
Please check your phone to make sure that it's not going to make really obnoxious noises during the talk when everybody's trying to concentrate. The code of conduct, you've probably had to look at it and agree to it when you signed up with Veto. Pretty straightforward. We try to foster an environment of mutual respect here. If anything makes you feel uncomfortable or you have any questions or concerns, just reach out to somebody who's wearing a crew shirt at any point.
So you should hopefully already have signed up for Veto. If you haven't, I think there's a way for you to request access using the email that you used to sign up. But this is basically the platform we're going to be using to collect feedback and questions during the sessions. So as you are watching the talks, if you could, go in there and ask any questions so that we can use them during the Q&A. And to do that, if you can just write the person's name, so the speaker's name, you should be able to add them, hopefully. If not, just write their name and then write the question so we can properly identify what question is for who.
Yep. And then don't forget, of course, that tonight, after the last talk, there's going to be the Mighty Mingle, where we can have drinks and get to know each other a bit better. So don't rush away. Yeah, that's it for the day. Let's have a great time, and it's time to introduce our first speaker.
Yeah.
So our first speaker opening this event for us today is a man who needs very little introduction. So I'm just going to give a very little introduction. If you've ever used atomic, like atoms and molecules and organisms in your development process, then you probably owe it to this guy. He's kind of a legend in the front-end dev community. Don't laugh, it's true, man. And we owe him a huge debt of gratitude for all the work he's done in this community. I'd like to welcome, and please give a big round of applause to Brad Frost.
Give it up for them. Yeah, give it up for the organizers. That's great. Okay. Hi, I'm an American. I love doing that. I love being that guy. So yeah, this is my first time in your beautiful country, and as it happens, this is the land of my ancestors, and I don't know why they went from this to this, but yeah, this is where I live now. But it is absolutely wonderful to be here. Your country, your city is beautiful. People are amazing. So thank you so much for having me. Thanks to everyone for being here. So this is my clickbait title, right? Is atomic design dead? That's what puts butts in seats. That's what sells tickets. But this is what we're up to, right? Like, let's talk about this. And what I would love to do is take you on a little trip. So, do we have audio? That would be helpful.
Take a little trip.
Hey, there we go.
A little trip with me.
Excellent. All right. I encourage everybody to listen to Low Rider at least once a day. All right. 1991. First website. 1991, also CSS. 1994-ish, GeoCities, right? This is where it all started. If you're doing like GeoCity stuff, anybody like from that era here, the olds? Yeah, that's all good. But if you were making websites back in the early to mid 90s, right? What did you do? You just went in and you made websites. You wrote some HTML, and there's the website, right? 1996, creating killer websites. All of a sudden, people are like, we could design websites in Photoshop and use the slice tool to slice up this JPEG and slap it on the internet. All right. That's what we did. Isn't that crazy? Does anybody remember like cutting out 4 different border radius images and then grafting them onto a button? Oh, those were the days. So this internet thing started picking up, and there's like, okay, there's something to this, right? So what organizations started doing is like, we're going to have our website, and then there might be like an intranet, right? We're going to have 2 websites. And now this presents a little bit of a fun challenge, right? Because it's like, all right, well, we got 2 websites, and we're like one organization. And there's these things called brand style guides, right? These things have been around, brand books and stuff, since the 60s. And this is how we did it. It's like, here's the logo and the white space around the logo, and here's how to use the logo. And it's like, for website designers, you're like, that's great and pretty worthless, right? 2004, Web 2.0. Now we get web apps. We got Ajax. We got jQuery, right? We got Designing Interfaces by Jennifer Tidwell. We got Macromedia Flex. 2004, conjuring up some feelings for some folks here, right? Flash. Oh, Flash. So we have more Photoshop. All right, so now we're getting, okay, so now we don't just have our company's website or our organization's website. We don't just have our intranet. We also have this, functional thing, this thing that does things. 2007, iPhone released, right? 2008, both the sort of iOS and Google Play Store released in 2008. So here's more Photoshop, right? And loosely, although this never actually happened, but brand style guides, hypothetically at least, would sort of feed these native experiences. 2010, Sketch comes on the scene, starts eating Photoshop's lunch, right? We finally get sort of something that resembles an interface design tool. Now, our good friend Bootstrap. And Foundation by Zerb, remember that one too? Right, so this is like 2011. So all of a sudden, so we have these design tools starting to grow up, but then we also have this idea of like, oh, here's this like kit of parts. Here's this like, drop the CSS file in the head of your document, and you get alerts that look kind of pretty. You get buttons that look kind of pretty. You get form controls that look kind of pretty, right? NPM introduced 2011. But it's also kind of around this time we have people like Natalie Down, practical maintainable CSS, which is like really kind of like sort of some of the origin stories of this idea of like a pattern library, right? Nathan Curtis, who's still kicking ass in the design system world today. 2009, he releases a book called Modular Web Design. But also we have things like CSS methodologies, like BEM was open sourced in 2010, but we also have Jonathan Snook's SMAX, Nicole Sullivan's OOCSS. So you start getting this like notion of like, man, we have all this stuff. We need to maybe start thinking about this in a more modular way, right? And then things like Angular start hitting the scene, right? JavaScript frameworks like that. 2012. React comes out in 2013. I actually learned that I wrote and introduced atomic design in 2013, like exactly 2 weeks before React was introduced, so that was kind of a weird one. Synergy, as they call it. And some of the tooling starts coming up around these pattern libraries where you can say, hey, here's these patterns, reach for this, right? Not just Bootstrap, but like our bespoke pattern library that you could kind of copy and paste and plug into your web apps. And by the way, all these dotted lines are like loose connections, right? These are like, okay, this is informing this, right? Not necessarily directly correlated, but they're informing one another. So now all of a sudden you start seeing these web apps, right? jQuery app getting replaced by a React app and things like that. So you have more stuff happening, right? Now all of a sudden in the design world, we're like, okay, we're gonna have like sticker sheets. You remember those things? They're like, Photoshop UI kits and Sketch UI kits and things like that. But you start seeing this stuff start to pop up 2011, 2013, 2014. And then you start seeing this proliferation. Boy, oh boy, did React get popular. Wow. And what ended up happening with that is we could kind of go, oh, okay, we have a React library that can now sort of power multiple React applications. That's exciting. And this is where we get kind of our first direct line. So ES modules comes out in, 2015 or something like that. This is where I wrote my book called Atomic Design. But like this is where we start getting, oh, okay, here's this pattern library or UI components that could actually be injected directly into a web application. That's really exciting, right? And then you could also have like a sibling library for all your Angular stuff, right? That's like kind of copying and pasting from the React one, and you're kind of having to replicate it and stuff like that. You can still power these things, all these loose connections still. And then Figma enters the scene, 2016, which is pretty crazy. 2016, that's not that long ago, friends, right? So they come out, and then what also happens in the following year is this introduction of Figma libraries and also sketch libraries and things like that. So now you can have multiple, it was like these design tools suddenly had this epiphany, like 2016, 2017, that was like, holy shit, do you know that designers work with other designers? Guys, we should do something about this. Up until that point, it's like we had like Photoshop smart objects. It's like, if anybody remembers that stuff. But it's like the idea of like sharing things, especially in the design world, was like comically bad. So this is a big deal. Now all of a sudden we can kind of create a library. These other sort of designers can subscribe to that library and sort of get the stuff right out of the can. So this is where something happens, because, here, let me go back to this. I'll rebuild this. But we have this kind of, things are happening on the design side, things are happening on the development side, and it's kind of in this like 2015, 2016 era that this term called design systems gets born. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not just about like a design tool or a development tool. It's like we're kind of talking about this thing that's like UI concept, right? We can kind of draw a box around these different kinds of assets that are used to sort of power these other products, to power these digital products. Things like ClarityConf, Gina Ann, first kind of design system focus conference. Also around this time, Storybook gets released and things like that, so the tooling starts getting better. And then we also have this idea of kind of like a reference website for our design system, so things like material.io or carbondesignsystem.com. What happens from here? Oh, around this time also, 2016, again, the team at Salesforce, the Lightning Design System, kind of popularized this concept called design tokens, which are these kind of like low-level design primitives that we're able to sort of feed into our design libraries as well as our code libraries to sort of give a central source of truth for things like defining our brand, color palette, and stuff like that. These things can also travel to native environments. So we're getting like more direct connected lines here, right? Where all of a sudden this stuff isn't just like loosely informing one another. We're actually starting to like build some infrastructure here, right? And then what else happens? Just more stuff. I mean, like this is bananas, right? Like anybody working at an organization, it's just all of a sudden things go from, we're far from the days of like we have a website, right? It's now we have dozens of websites or hundreds of websites or all of these different things. So this becomes unmanageable from a technology perspective. And so we have things like web components that sort of grow up, and it's been like a slow burn. It kind of started as, Polymer. Lit started, as Polymer back in 2015. It was like slow going to get this stuff off the ground. But at the same time, with the popularity of all of these different frameworks and all these things, web components start to mature, and they start to be able to start traveling to all of these places. So we could actually create a single source of truth for these UI components that can power multiple technology stacks, which is awesome. What else happens? Figma starts eating everybody's lunch, right? So sorry, Sketch, but like you're on the chopping block here, and like nearly everybody is kind of migrated over to Figma, or they're like sadly looking through the glass pane, like going, please approve my enterprise license. Reference site world starts getting a little bit more mature as well. We used to like just build, reference website is a website, so you could build it in anything. We build them in WordPress, we build them in, Jekyll and Gatsby and the rest of them, but tools like Zero Height start coming on the scene that kind of like can suck in your Figma files, suck in Storybook files, and iframe that stuff in, and so you have more of like a direct and live connection for your design system. So now we're like, okay, we're all solid lines here, right? This is actually like working. This is all wired up. This is all real. This isn't just like, oh yeah, we're referencing how to use the logo. We're like actually like sort of powering this whole infrastructure, which is really cool. And then it also gets a little bit more sophisticated. So you have things like, we call them a number of different things. It could be like a child design system. We tend to call these things like recipes. But you could have something like material design as the core design system, and then kind of a layer outside of material design is maybe like YouTube's design system, or Gmail's design system, or Google Calendar's design system. And these things can sort of like sit outside of the design system but consume it, and then sort of do more sort of product-specific things there. But in general, what we're talking about is we now have this very sophisticated ecosystem that happens to just kind of boil down to generally, we have a design system. That design system powers and informs the products that design system serves. And in theory, those products, in turn, inform and influence the makeup of the design system. Now, I've been doing this for a decade, pretty exclusively, and we see a lot of things happen with the relationship between these things, right? Sometimes, these things are very far apart. This is one way that these things tend to die, right? You have the design system team in their ivory towers with their wizard beards, crafting the perfect UI components. Meanwhile, the actual product people are like they're worlds away, right? So that's not good. You also have the pattern police, right? Authoritarian dictator rule. Thou shalt use this primary button or be banished from the land, right? That goes over real well. You also have the flip side of that, which is basically like, oh yeah, we have our design system, and here's our product roadmap, and we're just going to be like, hump. That one happens all of the time. So it's about getting this balance, right? This is hard work. This is hard work to get this, to strike this balance between this kind of like, how do we find this equilibrium between the design system and the products that it serves. And this, my friends, is why all these years later, 10 years later, 10 years and a change, a couple months, why this stuff matters, I think. Why atomic design is still relevant. Because it's about getting this balance right. And I'm going to get into it, but first I want to introduce you. I have a long-running series called Just Another Day in Old Brad Frost's email inbox. So this is my inbox, and I want to invite you into my world. Hi, Brad. I was wondering if you read mail with empty subjects. Hi, Brad. I feel like we're on a first-name basis. I feel like I know you already. But on the other hand, you have no idea who I am, which is understandable, I guess. Who's this crazy guy, and why should you trust this email? Great question. Valerie's here to start this freezing cold email with yet another COVID-related joke to get us through this, because it's a pandemic already. Oh. P.S. I wrote this while wearing a mask, so this email is 100% COVID-free. I wanted to introduce myself in a way that shows I was interesting, witty, and clever. Alas, I wrote this email instead. Before you ask, yes, I'm keenly aware of the irony of this situation. Are you receiving my emails? sent from my iPhone. Please respond, Brad. Sorry to annoy you. I haven't heard back from you, and despite several attempts to contact you, I'm really starting to worry. Please let me know if any way I could help or call 911. P.S. If my words have failed me, it's time to unleash my secret weapon. I've attached a picture of a dog wearing a monocle. According to the internet, his name is Rufus. I trust this will charm you into submission. Yeah, just some really clever stuff. Came across your website, and I found your banner image reminds me of my late grandmother's curtains. She lived in Pennsylvania, too. Must be something in the water. I'm old. With that comes a bit of knowledge, a smattering of applicable experience, and many more aches and pains that I thought I was when collecting while performing stupid human tricks. Like, what? Like, I hope it's okay that I scooped your Monopoly Photoshop file to use on my dead cat's public and not-for-profit Facebook site, Cheddar's Dreams. And in case you're wondering, of course I looked that up. This is Cheddar's Dreams. Helps keep his mind sharp. Good for him. But the amount of stuff, just go over that one. Some misfires too, no more Taco Tuesday, that's fine. That wasn't addressed to me, I just kind of got roped into it. It was like some organization that basically saying that they're no longer doing Taco Tuesday. This stuff's always fun. We all love some good stuff like this. This one is especially great. My name is Undefined, and I work with Undefined for their Undefined. And my team and I are looking to create Undefined that helps us undefine. We would like to keep the project cause between Undefined and Undefined. We would like to complete this project by Undefined. Sincerely, Undefined. And then you just get, like, holy shit. Like, I don't even know, like, sometimes I just, like, take my hands on, like, I have to just go take a walk outside. And I don't know what it is. Like, I'm just a guy, right? Like, I'm here. I'm the same as, we're just getting through life. And these people, I don't know. I don't know why this is happening, friends. I don't know. But so that's why I need to share it with you, because I'm like, am I the one that's crazy? I'm a Guinness record holder for greatest memory. Okay. This one's good. 13-year-old full stack designer. I hold a 4.0 degree in computer science from Harvard, sure. So now we're starting to get closer to why I'm even bringing all of this up. Here we go. You sound like you know a lot of programming, but you know how to spell Code Academy. You spelled it Code Academy. No wonder why we need so many programmers, because people like you suck. LMAO, right? But then here we go. Now we start getting into just like a decade's worth of when you throw language out there, atoms, molecules, organisms, people take issue with it. And I have had so many emails. It's like just arguing with me over semantics, telling me that they're about to like fist fight their colleagues, telling me, why don't you just call them, modules and components and blocks and elements instead of all this other stuff? And, there's no need for all of this stuff. And it's just like, oh, please stop. Please stop. Just even like a couple months ago, it's like on my book, I have my book like sort of text on GitHub, and they're like, hey, change this. Okay. So I have a decade of this, and atomic design often gets sort of swept up as this like language, right? Atoms, molecules, organisms, and it's really not. If we transport ourselves back to 2013, here's my younger, handsomer self, all right? I was working on projects, right, doing some work. I just entered the world of self-employment, working with my friends on some redesigns of some websites, and had these ideas kicking around in my head that ultimately became atomic design, and using a tool called Pattern Lab that I helped create to sort of create this hierarchy, this ability to sort of like further define what components are, and to actually spell out how these all kind of come together to form real digital product experiences. So for the uninitiated, right, if we start all the way at atoms, right, Just like atoms in the natural world, things like carbon and iron and hydrogen and helium and the rest of them, we could explode literally any user interface in the world and be left with a handful of atomic elements, right? These are the basic building blocks of our UIs that you can't be broken down any further, right? Without ceasing to be functional. So these are great, but also not particularly helpful. So it's at this molecule stage that we're actually combining these things together into a functional unit, right? Like a relatively simple component that I call molecule. Now all of a sudden, this label atom defines this input atom, right? Clicking that button can submit that search form or whatever. But so you have this relatively simple component, each with its own kind of properties and states and stuff like that, similar to how, a couple hydrogen atoms and oxygen bond together and form a water molecule that then takes on its own properties. We can kind of do the same thing with our components. Those little components, those molecules, can get stitched together and combined into relatively complex components that I call organisms, right? Like a header organism can be comprised of logo atom, primary navigation molecule, single field form molecule, but all of these things kind of hang out together. They have their own behavior, they have their own properties, right? Responsive behavior, things like that, right? And we see this on like literally every website that we go to. Those things combine even further into an actual page, right? But here at this template level, we're focused more on the sort of just overall layout, it's almost like scaffolding or a skeletal system for a user interface. And then at that page level, what we're doing is we're taking that skeletal system and we're pouring real representative content into it, right? This is the real stuff that real human beings see whenever they visit our websites, whenever they visit our apps, whenever they go to a thing, right? They're not just seeing like our components in isolation. They're coming to a web page with a goal and a purpose, and whatever components make up this page need to be able to handle whatever content goes and gets poured in here. And these things at this page level, we're sort of depicting how this stuff actually works in the real world, but we're also able to sort of like hit it with all the different things, right? So you might have, the COVID banner, unfortunately, got a lot of use over the last number of years. So it's like, okay, our design systems need to be able to have that. Our page level things need to be able to sort of support the introduction of this. You might have like a WordPress admin that has a bunch of bells and whistles, a bunch of links and stuff, versus an author that has far fewer links. If you're a bank customer and you log into your dashboard, right, what do? You see recent transactions, you see charts and graphs and other things like that, but what if you're a new user, right? That's a different experience. You don't have any recent transactions, so what does that look like? And it's at this page level, this product level, that we're like really, making sure that the component library that sort of undergirds all of this stuff is able to handle the different sort of content scenarios. And just to be clear, it has nothing to do with the web. It has nothing to do with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It is just a mental model for thinking about user interfaces. So, right, if we were to apply atomic design to our good friend Instagram, right, you could see if you explode Instagram into its atomic pieces, you have a handful of like icon buttons, a handful of text nodes, a couple different image files, especially the ones that are user-generated and stuff. Molecules, these things kind of come together, including the nav bar. But the real meat and potatoes of the Instagram experience happens at this organism level, right? We have like we could call it the photo organism that contains like the avatar and the user handle, the actual media asset itself, as well as, the actions and the comments and stuff for this. And this is the thing that's stacked on top of each other for infinity, right? This is the thing that keeps us up far later than we would have hoped, right? Template level, we just sort of sandwich it all together, pretty basic layout. And then at the page level, here's the part where Instagram's design and development teams need to be able to sort of say, okay, if you are Outcast with 7 characters to your title, right? Or if you have a square image versus a landscape image versus a portrait image versus a boomerang versus a carousel versus a video versus anything else, right? That photo organism right, needs to be able to sort of handle all of those different use cases, right? What if you are, Beyonce or Taylor Swift or whoever is popular? What is it, DJ Bobo? Is that the? What if you're DJ Bobo and you get 1 billion likes on all of your photos and a bunch of nested comments, right? Like Instagram's team needs to account for that, right? It also needs to account for me who gets 0 likes. And I cry into my pillow. Anyways, so to answer the question, is atomic design dead these 10 years later? The answer is no, because what I see in my work is many, many teams misfiring and failing to get this balance and failing to get this kind of relationship between design systems and the products they serve, right? Especially as design systems have become more a thing, and there's like dedicated teams for that thing. It takes away from, it gets kind of can risk getting some distance between the products that they serve. So what atomic design does is sort of really serves as this through line that really connects the design systems that we create with the products that we build and helps maintain this equilibrium, right? And creates this virtuous circle between the design system informing and influence how digital products get made, and the products inform and influence the makeup and DNA of the design system. That makes sense? Hopefully? Just don't argue with me about like the taxonomy of it, really. Send me an email. So now what? Now what? Taking you on like a history lesson, we've gotten to like the sort of state of affairs. We have all these different sort of connections, right? And really what we've been talking about is, okay, now we have all these digital products at an organization, and the idea is we have this design system that powers all of those things. Here's the irony. Each of our little organizations, wherever we work, are all toiling away, doing the same shit. The same text fields, the same accordions, the same tabs, the same goddamn date picker. What would it look like if we stop that? What are we doing? And that's the question I'm here to ask. What does it look like to maybe try to solve this at, I don't know, a global scale? Right? I've talked to my friend, I have friends on the inside, right? Friends that are close to the W3C and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, so you're talking about we need a bunch more HTML elements. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I don't think that's right. I see HTML elements as the kind of really low-level dowel rods of our IKEA furniture, right? And this is the shit that we've been dumping on the table of every web developer on the planet. And we're like, here, go build stuff, right? Go build a Malm bed. Here's some dowel rods. And we're very bad at it. I don't know if you're familiar, there's this thing called the WebAIM Million. It's like a big accessibility sort of site, and they do this annual roundup that's just supremely depressing. It's just like on the top 1 million websites on the internet, it's like we're basically averaging about 50 accessibility errors on a page, right? That sucks. That's not good. That's not winning. That's not success, right? So my argument is that we don't just need dowel rods, I think. I think that we need more kind of prefab, more pre-assembled stuff. What we talk about in our design system work is we want to kind of make the right thing the easy thing, right? And that's why we do this work, right? We're trying to sort of take pain away from the downstream designers and developers. We're trying to sort of solve this stuff in a central location, and then everyone benefits from it. What I would love to see is for us all to collaborate and actually make that work on a global scale. There's great initiatives out there. OpenUI is one of them. They're auditing, how sort of different design systems are used and trying to sort of get things more into sort of the native browser level. And they've done some really great work at kind of auditing some of the most popular design systems and sort of seeing this hit rate of oh, okay, Materials got this one, Polaris has this one, Carbon has this one, Lightning has this one, and the rest of them, right? So there's this like kind of like heat map of it's like, well, what are the most important components? What are we all building? And that's what I would love to see something like a global design system tackle, so that we're able to just sort of like use the world's accordion, and then we don't have to think about it. We can move on to bigger and better things, right? And just, I'm totally just speaking out of turn and all of this stuff, but just like, what does that look like? For one, this isn't like material design, this isn't use like an existing library that's sort of built for a single purpose. It's like, it needs to like be in a home and be sort of housed somewhere that actually makes sense for like a global scale. So this is all hypothetical, so just, big asterisk here. W3C alert, right? Let's just say it lives at the W3C level. I don't know, right? But the idea is like, well, we all do alerts, right? There tends to be a couple different flavors of them, right? There's an error alert, there's a success alert, there's an info alert, there's a warning alert, and then you might have some sort of other things and stuff like that. You might have that alert be dismissible or not, or whatever. And you could kind of like slot things inside and do whatever, right? Here's a button group, right? We kind of do this shit all the time, all day, every day, right? Here's our friend, the date picker field. Boy, oh boy, wouldn't that be great? Right? And I'm not talking about like the HTML element, which like that's a conversation of its own. We're like really talking about this like, here's this thing, it has all the features we need. You like pass in some just basic stuff, and you're able to get your job done. How many millions of human hours, human beings' life energy is wasted. Like right this second, like the world over, who's working on a date picker? In this room, actually, by show of hands, who's working on a date picker? Like everybody's like, what are you doing, right? What are we doing? Let's cut that shit out, right? Doesn't make sense, right? Basic things, like this is like so low level, like just basic stuff. Like label is associated with an input. Like, hey, that's like HTML 101 and is like one of like the biggest and most common accessibility errors the world over. Let's not do that anymore, right? Let's create like a text field component. And it looks a little something like this, right? Okay, it's an email, the label is this, there might be like some instruction text on that, and maybe you could like pass in like different states. Again, all of this is purely hypothetical, but I'm just throwing it out there, food for thought, whatever. What would this look like? Here's the rub. Here's it. Right? Because people have been saying for years, why don't we just use Bootstrap? Why can't everybody just agree to use Bootstrap? Life would be so much easier if we just use Bootstrap. And now, of course, we move on and say, why don't we all just use material design? And it's like, that's a damn good question because there's actually a lot of validity to it. I don't want to build things from scratch. Oh, Google already did it? Done. Right? But Google's material design was created for Google, right? And it comes with like a little ripple effect when you click on the freaking button. And I'm like, I don't want that, right? So it's like what we need is just like totally stripped down, close to the metal, unstyled sort of things. And the beautiful thing about the world of web components is that like, you could have your design tokens and you can kind of like wire these things up. You could sort of set a theme or tailwind config as the hip kids kind of call it or whatever. Like, but you get the idea. You're able to sort of be like, here's my design language. And then you could like style it, right? The way that you want it. And this is whenever we get at like the differences between why are you building an accordion versus you versus you versus you versus you, nearly everybody is going to just be like, well, we're doing it to match our brand or whatever, right? And all the low-level dowel rods and stuff are still there, HTML elements, if you did need to do something custom, right? But like, let's just stop doing that, right? I tend to define a design system as the official story of how your organization designs and builds digital interfaces. And that's true. We do a lot of work, we duck our heads into all these different organizations, and you need to understand how the organization works in order to kind of craft design systems that actually work for that organization, right? Very rarely does it impact like the API of like an alert component. It really has to do more with like process and people stuff. But I think what needs to happen in order for to make this successful is to really recognize it's like, yeah, this is, our organization is Organization Planet Earth, right? We should probably like zoom out and sort of like tackle it at that level. House it in a place where everyone sort of knows, fire everybody's collective human potential at this thing, talents and abilities. All those, I love accessibility experts, but sometimes they're just like a grumbly bunch, and they like to say like, this is why this can't work. This is why you suck, right? And it's like, well, that's not helpful. Like if we're just like, here's the world's accordion. If there are accessibility defects, let's solve that there. Done, right? Let's do it. Thank you. So yeah, one guy is with me, yes! Anyways, so that's one big idea I want to throw at you. And then I'd be remiss not to talk about our good friend AI that's been totally upending our world, right? This is the other sort of area. This is my depiction of design systems in the time of AI. So, but this is not that far from the truth, right? So up until now, things have looked like this, right? We're a bunch of humans and we make websites, right? And now all of a sudden we've got humans feeding AI, right, which then build websites. I'd like to introduce to you my friend and colleague, Kevin Coyle, who's based in Manchester in the UK. He loves his dogs, and I asked him if he would be willing to put something together for me and send me a little demo of like stuff that we've been working on with AI and design systems, because there's a lot of stuff whenever we talk about design systems being this kind of like rote or repetitious or boring kind of process where we're like kind of like building these repeatable things that are meant to all kind of look and feel the same and just be shaped the same. That's kind of good fertile territory for AI. When I asked him to send me some pictures of him, he sends me pictures of his dogs. He sent me about 5 pictures of just his dogs. So I got to include that. But here's Kevin on sort of like how we've been sort of messing with AI and design systems. And I think that there's some really interesting stuff happening here. Is that, could I get some audio? Unless that's on my fault. Is the audio working by chance? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Let's see. Oh, volume is up. Do. Oh. Well, what Kevin is doing, I'll do my best. So he's been working on some stuff where you basically like feed it a prompt, right? Where you basically tell the AI, hey, you're a design system consultant. But what he's also been able to do is sort of feed it like a sample code base, right? That basically says, here's what our design system looks like. It has this prefix attached to it. It has like all of this different stuff. Here's what our props look like. Here's what the naming conventions for those props look like, and so on and so forth. Now, what I would like you to do is then sort of use that information to now sort of just generate me some new components out of this. And so what he is able to do with a pretty damn good success rate is to sort of generate brand new components. So you can just say like, give me an accordion component that has these different sort of switches on them. I want like here we go. So he's actually creating some stuff, an alert component. He basically just said, make me an alert component that has an icon thing, that has a heading variant, that has a tag name, a heading, and a dismissible sort of flag. And what it does is it like gets you a solid 80, 90% of the way there. Okay. And you're like, well, that's handy, and it's using all the conventions that we've established in our code guidelines. It's following all of the things, so we have this like DS prefix. That's not coming from anywhere. That's just like something that we established and fed into the AI just by sort of giving it some sample code, and it does a pretty damn good job at sort of deducing what this thing should look like. Now, it's not perfect, but at the same time, getting 80% of the way in like 2 minutes of work is like, okay. But I also want you to just notice that feeling of like, oh, I don't know about this. This feels a little interesting, right? So this is interesting because we are kind of in this era where this stuff is ripe for abuse, right? This stuff is happening now. This stuff is unleashed upon the world in a totally reckless and irresponsible way, but it's our reality now, right? And the world over, here we are once again, just sort of spraying a lot of stuff out there, right? Using this AI, whatever. And you see all sorts of headlines about this, I'm sure, same as me. But this one stuck out to me because 90% of online content could be generated by AI by 2025. And that 90% number is interesting because going all the way back to 2013 was a fruitful year for me. Atomic design, but also I created a talk and a website called Death to Bullshit. And this is a website for Death to Bullshit. And it was kind of like the talk came first, and I had a website where I turned on the bullshit. And there's just like ads everywhere. Like this was like whenever just everything was like overlaying on top of each other. But I define bullshit in a number of ways, right? Superfluous or unnecessary, cluttered, clunky, needlessly complex, intentionally deceptive or insincere. Wait for it. After a while, I think it just like sort of chills out on creepy girl. Yeah, there we go. That's the website, right? But in that talk, I sort of talked about there's this thing called Sturgeon's Law, or Theodore Sturgeon. He's a science fiction author, and he was asked the question, why is 90% of science fiction writing crap? And his response was, well, when you think about it, 90% of everything is crap, right? And I think that that's true, right? So whenever we're talking about 90% of online content coming from AI, it's like, yeah, is that signal or is that noise? I'm inclined to think noise. Of course, there's exceptions to everything, but what's interesting here is that this is happening, and this is happening now and will continue to happen. And, there's a bunch of grifters, there's a lot of reasons and motives for people to just kind of like, hurry, get the stuff out the door, and we're seeing that now, right? That's not to say that this stuff is inherently bad, right? Setting aside human extinction, destroying the planet, but like what we need is this kind of human shield, effectively, against what AI unleashes on the world, right? And so I think that it's possible to wield these tools, to explore them, to use them, fruitfully, but also responsibly, in order to make sure that we're not contributing to the 90% of crap, right? Here's the problem, though, is that process takes longer than just kind of using AI and hitting the publish button, right? So, but this is where we're at, right? It's like, how do we actually utilize the technology we have at our disposal, but how do we do it in a way that, elevates humanity, that moves things forward, and doesn't lead to a really lousy world? So with all of these concepts, with AI, with this global design system, so much of what I talk about with respect to design systems is this notion of respect, right? When we talk about respect, we're talking about respecting human beings' talents and abilities and energy. Your talents and abilities and energy, I don't think are best spent building yet another date picker. Right? Pretty sure that you got more in you than that, right? And I think that it's really fascinating because we live in a very interesting spot. Like, we help make the internet, the Wikipedias of the world, right? The stuff that actually, the GitHubs of the world, right? The open source software of the world. And I think that we are in a position where we can help model what responsible behavior looks like, what collaboration at a global scale looks like. How do we put all of our smart heads together and do stuff together to make this world a better place? And like, I'm not just like, saying that. I think that we all have this ability and the capability and the potential, and now even like from a web perspective, like the technologies to actually like make this stuff happen. So I would love to keep this conversation going with you all. I'm going to be sort of hanging out here for the next couple days, but I do just want to like remind yourself of like why you're here, what you're doing. You have a great amount of talent and potential, and put your life energy towards worthwhile things. And I think that when we do that, we can actually keep this planet alive and keep things moving forward. So with that, everybody, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Brad, I love it.
Cheers.
I love the world component, and I'm on board.
Yeah.
God damn it. So, what's your email address? I'll email you.
It's right, yeah, brad@bradfrost.com. Feel free to send me all of your crazy shit.
Expect it when you least expect it. Now it's time for the question and answer.
Oh, okay. All right. You want me to stay up
You
here?
can sit down there if you want.
No,
You're
it's
more
all right.
comfortable.
No. Let's stay up here.
One thing I just wanted to mention that we're here in this, there's a couple hundred people in this room. It's kind of cozy, intimate. But this is actually the World Conference. There's people everywhere around the world tuning in right now. So I'm looking at my phone because my mom's going to call me any second now.
Does she run in on the global design system?
So if you have a question, and I'm looking at you, Australia.
Oh.
Or Singapore.
Whoa.
Who's out there? I want to just give a couple, maybe minutes.
Oh, okay.
To let somebody ask a question from
another
Morocco.
part of the world. Okay.
So let's just wait a second. I could ask you a question.
Please do.
How'd you like the hotel last night?
It was fantastic.
It's cozy, right?
It's very good.
Yeah. Okay. Another question. What, apart from the world components, what do you want to do with this new stuff? This human buffered AI?
The AI stuff I'm still figuring out. I honestly, I feel a very strong urge to exercise restraint. That's where I feel. Like I feel like a lot of, there's just so many people foaming at the mouth one way or the other that it's like it's not a very conducive place to actually sort of give some thought to what this all means and how it's all doing. It's very churny, foamy waters, and I'm like, my instinct is to move away from it because I think that this really requires a lot of thought and consideration, and like there's great power here. I think that there's like really interesting stuff, but again, I will say that just to reiterate what I said in my talk, like I think that this was all rolled out horribly wrong, and it's kind of hard to put it back in the box. So like what I'm trying to do is just kind of educate myself, but just also kind of like sit back. I don't think that like participating in the like, this is going to annihilate humanity, or this is like the end all be all and we're all going to be like great. Like I definitely exercise a lot of like caution and stuff, but like, I'm trying to like hang back, just kind of understand it, wrap my head around it. I'd say that one of like the best books I could recommend that's tangentially related to the topic, there's a book by artist and technologist called James Bridle called Ways of Being that talks about, he does a great job at sort of like threading the needle of like technology is powerful, we have a responsibility to it, but we also need to like really pick at that I part of AI, which is intelligence. what are we actually talking about when we talk about intelligence? And he argues it's like, we're just talking about this very narrow band of sort of human-centric intelligence. And what we need to be doing is like really opening our eyes and listening to just the world and the more than human world, as he calls it, to just like, how do we use AI to combat climate change and like, prevent mass extinctions and things like that. It's like, I think there's a lot of power there. So I'm trying to like hang out at that level versus like, is this going to like disrupt my job like right now, or how do I use this to be more efficient? I feel like that's like a very, it's a good instinct, it's a good first instinct, but there's like a lot more to it than just that.
Yeah, I like this idea of like kind of treading lightly, sitting back. You kind of
Yeah.
describe it like that.
Yeah.
For me, that kind of means like immediately, like we'll turn off GitHub Copilot. Like, what does that mean actually for you?
I don't think it means turning off GitHub Copilot. I just think it's being, cautious of like how quickly you jump to conclusions about this, because nobody knows. Like we're at minute 1 of this stuff existing, and this is going to obviously like play out over the course of the next, days, weeks, months, years, decades. So it's like it's really tough to draw strong conclusions about stuff. So it's like yes, use it. And again, there are efficiencies to be had in the present day with GitHub Copilot, amongst other things. And again, like what I was showing, it's like, generate a new component. It gives you a lot of what you need right out of the gate. Like that's all good and pretty safe, I would say. But it's just like really being cautious and being responsible with it. But again, just like that, injecting the humanity after the AI does its thing, and really like sort of being responsible in that respect, I think is really important at this moment.
Right on. There's a couple questions trickling in from the interwebs. I don't really want to go read all of them, but just grab the first one here from Felix. Brad, do you think headless UI libraries like React Aria can be a form of a global design system?
I think that those were like kind of the first steps in that right direction, right? Which is this like, oh yeah, we want the behavior, we want the semantics, but we kind of want to bring our own kind of style to this stuff, right? I want to make sure that whatever my popover, like my slide out drawer is like accessible and works right, but like I want to be the one in control of like how it looks. So I think that those things are great. But of course, React is proprietary and all of that stuff. So that's why it's like, yes, those things can and should inform how a global design system gets done. So it's a good inspiration, but it's like not a solution of itself.
Mm-hmm. From Chris, how do you think this global design system should come to live? Maybe she means come to life. Like
Yeah. This is a damn good question. Again, like I have, like, this is probably irresponsible on my part because I'm out here being like, yeah, this is a good idea. I have friends at like the W3C. I have friends that are, people like Brian Cardell who've been involved in like the development of the web. He was like there at the beginning of, he helped make web components, right, a thing. So it's like super brainy people, all of that stuff, but it almost like really close to the metal, again, at that kind of like dowel rod sort of, HTML, like low level, the HTML spec, CSS spec. I love all of those people. They're very good friends of mine and stuff that are all like making that stuff happen. And I think what I hope is that standards work tends to be slow and often thankless work. So thank you, standards people and people working in that world. But it's like, can we create like a layer on top of it that's like relatively easy to set up, do some like consensus building, get, just like that kind of matrix I showed of like all these different design systems. It's like, okay, here's an alert component from like all these different design systems. Here's all this stuff. Here's like the safe kind of smart sort of foundations of it. Let's like arrive at some language, use that language kind of consistently, have some good architectural principles in there, and kind of get it out to the world. And then I think from there, then it a little bit becomes like a marketing campaign, like get people like whatever, the Chris Coyers of the world to go, hey, use that accordion. And like you could get everybody just going, yep, that's the accordion we're using from now on. You using that accordion? I'm using that accordion. Accordion, accordion, accordion. Yeah, good, we're good. All right. So it's like, I hope that it's like not like a totally crazy prospect to try to make something like this happen, but I think that it's just going to require some coordination, orchestration, and just kind of careful thought and consideration. So, but yeah, again, just to be clear, this is all in like hypothetical territory, so I think that a lot of work would need to happen to sort of get something like this off the ground.
Is OpenUI a step in that direction, you think?
It is, yeah. They've been doing a lot of great work and have sort of admired them from afar. And I think that the idea, though, and I've talked to Brian, who participates in this, again, it's like what they're trying to do is like try to get things into HTML proper. And I'm like, well, can we set up a thing that's almost like an intermediary step, or like, you know, maybe it never makes its way into HTML, and maybe that's okay. So it's like, it's I think this sort of introduction of this layer that isn't necessarily like part of the spec, but is like an officially sanctioned. I can't think of other organizations that would be better than the W3C to just be like, yep, this is the one, like you should use that. So yeah,
Sounds cool.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
Here's a meat and potatoes kind of question from Miro. What inspired you to choose this color palette for the Atomic Design branding?
Oh man, this has been my branding since day one. So this predates everything. I've got branded pants. I finally found branded pants, and I was like so excited. But yeah, orange has always been my favorite color. I like, for whatever reason, my whole vibe is like 1974. And so like cream and brown and orange is my thing. So yeah.
Well, that's that's all the time we have. Brad Frost, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you,
Appreciate
Brad.
it. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
So before I jump off the stage, now we have a 20-minute break, and our next talk starts at 11. So we have a different speaker. We have the tech track starting here now, and upstairs is the design track. So join us.
Lazy lurking, nursing my health with the grape juice working, cursing the never. There are crazy turns as you work through the present. Is it nature or nurture when you hurt your brethren? We pray in church for our personal heaven, but your mates are searching to work to help you. Hating work and turning up forever, doing waste man work only works for the devil.
There are some that swim in troubled waters. I swim in troubled waters. My enemies can't swim. There are some that swim in troubled waters. I swim in troubled waters. My enemies can't swim.
Why is it busy at 3 in the dark? Riding to this shit, what will be hard. What have we gone and started? Why aren't they all asleep in their cars? They whine and they bib, they beep and they bark. Should be dialing their dealer to re-up the party. Strife's inexpensive, it's cheap to get scarred. This night isn't Disney, the B-movie started. If everyone could just mind their own business and be who they are. It's part of human nature to hate the man you've hurt. You don't have to face up to how you ran him dirty.